And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and welcoming back our guest, Doug Greene, with a report on what happened in California during the election. Welcome back, Doug.
Thank you, Paul. It's always great to be back.
Yes, it's great to be back. Great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about, let's get right down to it. You were there working with the marijuana folks out there in California, Proposition 19. The results are behind us on the screen. And you were working with those folks who were in favor of Proposition 19 to get marijuana legalization passed, which it did not, but it seemed to do well. So tell us a little bit about how you wound up there and where you wound up going.
Well, basically how I wound up there is, you know, as people who have seen me on the show before know, I've been very involved in drug policy for many, many years, and I really wanted to be in California. I gave a few $100s to the campaign, to the official Yes on 19 campaign, but I wanted to be there, and it definitely seemed we had at least a shot at winning. People came from all over the country to help out. There were some people who were there, like one of the volunteers, a guy named Super Dave, actually, he's from Buffalo, New York, and he had been out there since, I believe, August 3rd. He actually was able to spend 3 months right before the election volunteering. Unfortunately, I was only able to spend about a week.
So where did you went when you got off the plane? Where did you go?
Well, basically, you know, it turned out actually someone I had done some work with, a guy named Evan Nissen, who is a student up at Ithaca College and took a semester off and was the deputy field director for the Yes on 19 campaign. And I had just emailed the generic field staff address about getting involved, and turned out he answered my email, and I said, hey, Evan, I want to come out there. And I said, you know, I'll go anywhere in the state you want me to, but for a number of reasons, I decided to go to the Bay Area. The campaign was started by Richard Lee, who's an entrepreneur who started Oaksterdam University, which is probably the premier school.
In Oakland, which is part of the Bay Area near San Francisco.
Right, just the East Bay, kind of like the Brooklyn, kind of like the Brooklyn of the Bay Area. A lot of people were saying that when I was out there. You know, kind of reminds me of Brooklyn. But yeah, so I stayed in Oakland, and that's where the campaign headquarters was. I did spend a lot of time in San Francisco as well, canvassing there. But basically, I was in the Bay Area from the Wednesday before Election Day and left the day after.
Now, was there any doubt that it would win in the San Francisco Bay Area?
No, I don't think there was any doubt that it would win.
And it did win?
It did. If you want to look at the map we have behind us, but yeah, if you can see the counties that are the yes counties.
Are the yellow counties, the ones that are like beige yellow.
Right, and those are all along the coast, and those include the counties around the Bay Area, like, you know, Alameda, which is the East Bay, San Francisco, Marin, San Jose County, all those counties we definitely won.
Silicon Valley, Apple Computers, all those types of places.
But if you look at the rest of the state, we did not win majorities in all those other counties.
Central area, and
the South, too.
Surprisingly enough, not in the north.
No, we lost. I mean,
Humboldt County, those kind of places.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of an interesting thing. I did meet a number of people during my stay there who were involved with the black market marijuana industry, and they were really scared of losing their outsized profits, frankly.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, before we get into that, it's very interesting, what, for folks here in New York where we don't have too many propositions that really capture people's imagination.
Well, we don't have propositions. We don't have initiative and referenda in New York State. There's no way that
What are those questions, those issues they have people vote on that are long, wordy propositions? I thought they were on New York ballots.
No, there are things to, like, amend the state constitution.
Right, okay. That has to be approved by the voters.
And that has to be approved by the voters, but we don't have anything where the voters can start a petition for, for an initiative or referendum. All those things are generated by the state legislature. And
so in California, people actually went out and they got thousands of signatures.
Thousands, forget about it, but we're talking over a million.
A million signatures on petitions.
Right.
So put this proposition on the ballot.
Right. There were actually 3 different competing initiatives. The other 2 were actually somewhat more libertarian and less restrictive than the one Richard Lee wound up getting on the ballot, which was the Tax and Regulate Cannabis 2010. But Richard Lee put $1.4 million of his own money into the campaign in terms of getting the petition circulated and getting it on the ballot.
Okay, now
So-
what did Proposition 19 actually say?
What Proposition 19 would have done is it would have allowed every adult in the state of California over 21 to legally possess up to an ounce of marijuana and to have a 5 by 5 square foot parcel in which they could cultivate marijuana in. It would have also allowed local governments, like cities and counties, to decide if they wanted to set up a system for licensed distribution.
I see.
Places, shops where adults over 21 could
Like
buy
state
cannabis.
stores in the South when you buy liquor. at a
Right,
state store.
but not necessarily state stores. As a matter of fact, I think that would have seriously run afoul of some state some federal law. It would have allowed basically the local governments to license private establishments to sell marijuana to adults.
So this would have, and in the midst of this, didn't the governor actually pass a law? I thought he almost passed a law or signed a law himself, Schwarzenegger, legalizing or almost legalizing. pot.
Well, no, it's not. What actually happened?
What was that law that was passed in the middle of all
sure.
this?
Actually, it wasn't in the middle of it. It was kind of late. I'd say it was maybe sometime in September, I think. But what you're talking about is SB 1447. And California had a very strange kind of status. The Moscone Act back in 1976 decriminalized it, but it wasn't really decriminalized. What it became was a misdemeanor that you couldn't go to jail for.
I see.
So you couldn't go to jail for it, but it was still a misdemeanor. You'd be arrested. You'd have to go to court. Because you couldn't go to jail for it, you couldn't get free counsel.
I see.
So it was a very strange status. But what Schwarzenegger did was he signed SB 1447, which as of January 1st, possessing an ounce will be like a traffic ticket. Not just possessing an ounce, but even smoking in public and smoking around a minor will still only be a violation like a traffic ticket with a maximum $100 fine.
Sort of like drinking an open container of beer.
Yeah. But here, of course, here in New York, if it's burning or open to public view, that's a low-level misdemeanor, and you can get, get locked up until you're arraigned.
Absolutely. If actually an open beer, you can be locked up and arraigned in New York. So this would take that whole area out. Instead, they would be almost a semi-civil action because they would just go after the money if you didn't pay or something like that.
Right. That's
I
right.
see.
And so and that was a very shrewd move on Schwarzenegger's part. I think that probably lost us a point or two right there.
I was going to say that right there, that it was almost organized,
Right.
you would think, by
one of the things
anti-marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit. We were talking about, because, there was the usual suspects, all the police and prosecuting agencies. Not every single police officer, but definitely the agencies that represent the police, the unions, the prosecution organizations, California, all seem to come out pretty strongly against this bill. The usual suspects.
The usual suspects. But, of course, there were law enforcement supporters. There's a group called LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and they were very strongly supportive of Prop 19.
And wasn't there a commercial? Wasn't there an ad with a police officer towards the end, a former police chief of the city who came out in favor of Proposition 19?
I think there was really only one ad, and that had Joe McNamara. Joe McNamara, who was a prominent law enforcement officer, one of the first law enforcement officers to speak out against drug prohibition, and he did appear in an ad. He also does policy work now at Stanford and the Hoover Institution, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. And the other thing I want to talk about, because we had touched on before we sort of went off on this, is what about the Northern California? We're going to look at the votes right now. Maybe this is a good time to actually look at the map and go county by county, starting from the north heading down or starting south heading
Right.
down.
I don't think we probably want to go through every county because most of them voted against Prop 19. But there's some interesting trends there.
Okay, let's start here in I believe this is San Francisco, and it shows. Let's pull away and show the total vote on the right was 4,560,635, or 46.4% yes in favor of Proposition 19, and then 5,251,255, 53.6% no. The gray areas are no, and the yellow areas are
the yes counties, yes.
Right, okay. Now, bringing it over, I can start on San Francisco County. There it is. Any surprises there?
No surprises there. I mean, the Bay Area was pretty heavy. I think 60 plus percent.
All right.
throughout
Now,
the Bay Area.
I'm trying. Here's. Now, wait a second. It shows here actually. Oh yeah, here it is. Yes was 62% in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. Yes was 63% in San Francisco. In Oakland, where you were, yes,
Alameda County.
Alameda County was 56% yes. All right, none of these are surprising. Along the coast, the left coast as they call it,
Yep.
51% yes, 63% yes, 51. Okay, no surprises there. 40. Now we're, I think, coming to Los Angeles, right? Now, which one is Los Angeles?
I think the next one that you're about to...
This one here?
Yep, I think that's Los Angeles right there.
Okay, here, Ventura.
Oh, Ventura. Then the next
Santa
one down
Barbara.
is Los Angeles.
Okay, there it is. There's Santa Barbara. There's San Luis Obispo. Ventura. Los Angeles County. There it is. No, here, wait a second. I didn't give it a second to respond. There it is. Los Angeles County. 48% yes, 52% no. Very
Yep.
close, but surprising. Why did the largest city in California go against Proposition 19?
Well, Proposition 19 lost, lost in among a lot of groups, older voters. One possible reason, I'm not from California, Paul. I'm certainly wouldn't call myself an expert on California politics, but of course the state of medical marijuana down there is really very tangled. They have seen a proliferation of medical marijuana dispensaries all over the county, and have been trying to radically cut back on them. In Los Angeles, and also the district attorney from Los Angeles was the Republican nominee for Attorney General, and almost won and that would have been a disaster. That actually would have been far more devastating to marijuana policy in the state of California than Prop 19 losing, because this guy, Steve Cooley, had said that all medical marijuana dispensaries were basically illegal and would have shut them down or try to shut them
So
down.
there's
had he
a
become
bit of a
Attorney General.
backlash there in the Los Angeles area.
Definitely. And it's definitely, the Southland is a lot more conservative than Northern California.
Right. And then here is famous Orange County, which was 42% yes, 57% no. Still pretty good for most conservative, the county that Richard Nixon.
Right, but definitely Orange County has been changing. There's a lot more immigrants in Orange County now. The Sanchez sisters represent Orange County in Congress, the two Latina Democrats.
So it's changing a lot, but
Right.
still not enough to help Proposition 19.
No.
And here on the border,
San Diego
was 47-52, close for a conservative place like San Diego. I
Yep,
would say.
especially San Diego. San Diego County is actually a county that had tried to opt out of the medical marijuana program. They had gone to court to say that because marijuana is illegal under federal law, they did not have to have dispensaries, and even now they're still trying to keep it very, very restricted in their proposed regulations for medical marijuana dispensaries.
Now let's go back up north, because there's where I was surprised, like here, a place like Mendocino County.
Right, the Emerald Triangle, kind of the Napa Valley of pot.
47% yes, that's all.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, a lot of...
Lake County, I mean, that's like Lake County is got marijuana farms in those mountains up there every 200 feet or something. 49.2% yes, it was close.
Closer.
Very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but still.
Lost.
And
that's definitely...
Humboldt County, the famous Humboldt County. 46% yes. That's all. 53% no. What happened?
Kind of almost mirrored the
3,000
statewide
people.
results right there in Humboldt.
Right in Humboldt County.
Cannabis cultivation capital. I mean, look, a lot of people from the growers to people I met in the city who were trimmers were afraid of the radical effect that passing Prop 19 probably would have had on the prices they could get for working in the marijuana industry.
The marijuana traffickers and growers themselves were a key population in opposing legalization.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Let's come around now. One or two things I wanted to see here. Over here is, again, this is Sonoma County. Now, that's good to see. 54.7% yes. That's very strong up there
Sure,
the
maybe
Russian
they
River.
thought they could grow weed with their wine, you know.
Right, it's a very
Grapes,
liberal
grapes,
area.
grapes and
Santa
ganja.
Rosa and all those towns. In there,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
nice.
big university town.
And here next to it also, Napa. It passed. Let's see, was it in Napa? In Napa, it passed.
Yeah,
50 point, barely, just
barely
squeaked through.
squeaked by in Napa.
So we have victory in Marin County, 62. Sonoma, 54. And Napa, 50. As you go north, then as you head north further, Lake, you start getting under 50%. Mendocino, Humboldt. These are all the famous, as you said, the Greene Trinity. This is where...
Yeah, Trinity.
yeah.
Had a great encounter with a grower from Trinity. That was
right. Oh, yeah,
was
tell me
funny.
about it. What was it? What were the growers saying to you?
Well, it wasn't a political conversation. It was. I'm actually working on a piece about my
Well,
my trip. But
Did you talk to any of the growers that were there? Did you run into any of those?
well, I ran into him, but we didn't really talk about politics. He just gave me a really good joint on the BART.
Oh, okay, good for you. Right, so they're still giving it away, but they don't want it to be legal. At least some of the growers, people. That's interesting. Well, it's it was predicted.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had said months ago that
Change
it may
was
be,
scary.
that it may be sort of a coalition of law enforcement types and the growers who defeated it, and that's
Right.
partially, that's definitely a
Growers
part.
and conservatives.
Yeah.
And all the people who benefit from the people who grow it, and there's thousands of them who do it because of the medical marijuana there.
Yep.
So let's come back on, and I'm going to join you over here. Doug Greene, I'm Paul DiRienzo. This is Let Them Talk, our Easter Green, our happy, jolly Green Easter event. And we're talking about Proposition 19, how it lost, although it was a very close vote to legalize marijuana in California, but yet, despite the loss, there were some interesting trends. Now, what are some of the trends that people saw in the vote that have led some to say that they're going to go and do this again next year in 2 years?
Well, I mean, there's a really prominent, mostly Democratic survey research firm called Greenberg, Quinlan Rosner, I believe it is the name. Rosner is the third partner, and they did some research after the vote, and they found that 52% of the people in California thought that marijuana prohibition wasn't working. There's also the fact that one of the things that had been hoped for and people were working on is really trying to raise the youth vote, because the youth heavily in favor of Prop 19 and marijuana legalization. That vote did not show up. It was
that a reflection of what was happening in the national political arena? There seems to be a lot of people who are staying home. A lot of Obama supporters stayed home this election.
Yeah, I mean, midterm elections, it's a much different electorate than a presidential election year. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of the leaders of the drug policy reform movement were sort of not, telling Richard Lee, this is a great idea, we support this, but you really should wait until 2012. And I think that attitude has changed. A lot of them really believe that the discussion was incredible. Really, this got international media in the course of being there over a week. There were film crews and reporters from Sweden and Israel and Finland and all over the world. News media were coming to Oakland to, see what was going on with this campaign.
It was that it generated that much interest.
Absolutely.
What was it about it that generated that much interest? I mean, let me put that a different way. George Soros came into this towards
very
the
late,
end.
very
late,
late,
and
very late,
others
like
said,
a week beforehand.
And he had stayed out for a long time, dismissing this, even though he's a longtime advocate for decriminalization.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the money people, and I was not able to get into the election night party inside Oaksterdam University, but my understanding is that some of the money people that were there, including people like George Zimmer of the Men's Warehouse, were not happy. They wanted an outright win. The money people want to win.
Why did they wait so long this time to get in?
I think that it wasn't until the very end where they thought, this has a shot of winning. One of the things that we never really got, there were many points in the fall that we were leading 4 to 7 points in the polls, but we really only once, I think, in the summer were briefly over 50%. And that's where we needed to be, over 50%. And we never really did that.
Right.
For a
So
sustained period of
even though
time.
there was all this excitement, it wasn't because people thought confidently it was going to win. Why was all this excitement happening, do you think?
I mean, I think people definitely thought it had a shot it could win. There was a lot of undecided. It was leading in the polls until into October.
It's an idea whose time has come.
Yeah, I mean, people were excited about this because this is the most progressive, biggest state in the United States.
There was
California,
that feeling. Yeah.
seriously talking about legalizing marijuana and defying the federal government and really going its own way on marijuana policy.
So what are they going to do? A lot of people criticize the wording of the bill. The map California is behind us. Are they going to change the wording in 2012?
Well, absolutely. I mean, whatever is on the ballot in 2012 is going to look different. Tom Amiano, who is a state assemblyman from California, had introduced a bill this year to legalize marijuana, which actually made it through one committee.
I see.
Never got to a floor vote, but he is going to be reintroducing that.
So they could even come through the legislature in California.
It's highly unlikely, but it could. That bill will be reintroduced, and legislators will be able to
What is it?
move it through the committee process.
So few things I've seen that can garner such huge support and yet cannot win the majority of politicians. What is the mainstream sphere?
Well, the majority of politicians, yes, the most politicians, I mean, all of the mainstream politicians were against it. Certainly there were local politicians, like from the Bay Area, who were listed on the list of endorsers.
Right, very liberal.
Right. But statewide politicians, I mean, even Jerry Brown, who is now the governor-elect of California, made some crack about, well, how are we ever going to compete with China if everybody's stoned,
That tells you a lot right there, right?
Right.
Okay, it doesn't fit the plan. It doesn't fit the idea.
Yep.
All right, very good. Doug Greene. So, okay, this we're going to come back to this in a minute and talk about Proposition 19, but we brought something else here that's sort of interesting. Why don't you raise this up? This is this week's Village Voice. It's free. We suggest folks pick it up, and you can see the cover article. And we've had a lot of programming about ibogaine, and this is a story about an ibogaine treatment. There's somebody who actually got a treatment, and this is the story. You can read over here what it says, sort of interesting. Ibogaine may be the miracle cure for addicts if they can survive the trip. Well, I think that's a little strong. The newspapers always seem to want to
sensationalize the issue.
Sensationalize things, right? When you think of the, how dangerous it is to maintain an existence as what they call a junkie, an addict. But tell us a little bit about this, Doug. What's this about?
It's a very good article on kind of what's been going on with ibogaine. Different derivatives of ibogaine that different researchers have been working on.
Sure.
It's an excellent piece, and I would recommend that anyone who has any curiosity at all about ibogaine check out the Village Voice or go to villagevoice.com and read it online.
Right. It's illustrated really with original art. I noticed that as well. Photo illustration by Levi Van Velu.
As well as with some pictures of some people we know, like Dana Beal.
Right. Dana, he's been a guest on the show several times. And here's some of the artwork that's inside the article and the voice. And yes, there is a picture of Dana Beal, one that I myself took many years ago. Somehow got into the paper. There it is right there. There's Dana, who's been a guest on this show many, many times. And you can see my name next to it, so I can plug myself a little bit. And so we suggest folks read this. Ibogaine is a nasty drug, but if you can disassociate the side effects from the good effects, there's a mechanism of action in ibogaine that reduces relapse in humans. Who said that? Deborah Mash?
I don't know whose quote that is. I remember that quote.
Right.
But I don't remember
Stanley Click, maybe one of the scientists.
One of the scientists probably.
Right. They always have to keep that sort of steady distance from things and not seem too aggressive, even though they put so much time and effort into
Right. Well,
it.
I mean, it's a very harsh drug in terms of its effects on the body and the mind, but it works for a lot of people.
Yeah, it works. It gets them off of heroin. What do you mean by works?
I mean, works in terms of they don't have a craving for opiates and can stay drug-free for a certain amount of time while they try and deal with the issues that got them into bad relationships with drugs in the first place.
Have you ever tried Ibogaine?
Yes, I've done Ibogaine.
Did you do like a full dose or a little test dose?
Nope, I've done full doses.
What was that like?
Very, very physically and emotionally intense. And
Because, we've had Dimitri here, and he's like, obviously he was a person who climbed out of the pit of total addiction, and Ibogaine was something that helped him a lot. You're not the same type of person. You're a different personality. So how did it affect your personality? How did it affect you?
I don't know. I honestly don't know how it affected me. I never actually had a full-blown experience because I don't know, my ego structures are just that strong.
You
I
fought
guess.
against it?
Maybe on some level I did. We've talked about trying it again.
Did you meet your ancestors?
No, none of that happened for me.
Did you have visions?
Some slight visions, but mostly it had somatic effects on me, and I was.
It made you like feel sleepy and tired.
Well, the last time I did it, I threw up like 4 times an hour for a few hours. I mean, it was knocked me out for a day.
Right. Oh, you took the pill form?
Yeah.
Not the rubber ducky.
Not the rubber ducky, though. We've talked.
We've talked about the rubber ducky.
Next time, maybe the rubber ducky.
All right. It's supposed to be a little better on the stomach.
Indeed.
Maybe not as a little bit frightening, but maybe not so frightening. I mean, we're getting to the age where we need those exams, you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think I'd rather rubber ducky.
I think we can survive it.
Yes.
Okay, Shock the Junkie on newsstands now for free, The Village Voice, and pick it up and read the cover article and find out more about Ibogaine. We've had many programs about Ibogaine on this show and covered it pretty from Africa to Slovenia to Venezuela to Argentina to New York.
Maybe to Afghanistan.
Afghanistan,
soon.
yeah, we're going to talk about the Afghanistan-Ibogaine connection maybe next show, next week. So I can't really promise that, but we're going to try and do it. All right, so it's we got about another couple minutes. Doug Greene, this is Let Them Talk. Why don't you tell us what the future holds for legalizing marijuana in the United States and particularly in California, where you just spent some time.
I mean, there's definitely going to be a bill introduced again in the California legislature next year. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are going to be a couple of different groups trying to get something on the ballot in 2012. Mm-hmm. There's also been there's 2 different groups that have language in Colorado. There are going to be 2 different groups trying to get a legalization initiative on the ballot in Colorado, Washington State, Nevada, Oregon. All these western states
Didn't
are
it
seen
pass
as
in
potentially.
Arizona just recently by a squeaker?
That was medical. That was a medical marijuana.
They didn't have. I thought they had that in Arizona.
No. They had tried several times before, but they had tried twice before, but their efforts were defective.
Right.
So this time they finally got it passed by under 5,000 votes.
Out of millions cast, a couple million cast. So that's
Yep.
pretty amazing. But they still got it passed. And finally, is this something that's going to hold muster in Arizona law?
Yep. Arizona.
It's airtight this time.
Now we have 15 states plus the District of Columbia.
Right. It's the wording, it
Medical
seems,
marijuana
of these laws and these propositions. The wording is crucial.
Right. Well, Arizona's was very conservatively drafted.
And California, we have to take into account the growers. They have their interests as well.
The growers and the perceived looseness of the language. A lot of people were not comfortable with the whole local approach and having the local governments make all the decisions in the state.
So the governments, the federal government, the states got to step in. We know that. See you later. Thanks for joining us on Let Them Talk.
Thank you.